Standing in the marble-floored lobby of Mercy General Hospital, I watched my parents freeze before a painting worth $3 million. The golden nameplate beneath the canvas read, Marcus Webb, in elegant script describing the mysterious artist's journey from struggling medical student to world-renowned painter. My mother's fingers trembled as she absorbed each word, while my father's surgical precision faltered for the first time in his career. Neither of them knew that Marcus Webb was me, Bryant Hayes, their son, who they'd forced through 7 grueling years of medical school while I secretly built an art empire under their noses. 7 years ago, I held 2 acceptance letters that would determine the rest of my life. One from the Rhode Island School of Design offering me a full scholarship to pursue fine arts. The other from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, representing my parents' unwavering dream for their only child, Dr. Patricia Hayes. My mother specialized in cardiology at Mercy General. Dr. Robert Hayes. My father performed neurosurgery with the same methodical precision he applied to every aspect of our family life. When they discovered both letters on my desk that April morning, the decision was swift and brutal. My father held the art school acceptance over the kitchen sink's garbage disposal, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life and death choices. This fantasy ends today, Bryant. Medicine is a noble profession that saves lives. Art is a hobby for people who lack the intelligence for real careers. My mother nodded, her stethoscope draped around her neck like a symbol of everything I was expected to become. We've sacrificed everything to give you opportunities we never had. Your grandfather worked 3 jobs so I could attend medical school. This family builds legacies, not pipe dreams. They watched me feed my childhood sketches into the disposal, 20 years of creativity ground into fragments and washed away. That night alone in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by medical textbooks they'd already purchased, I made a decision that would define the next decade of my life. If I couldn't pursue art as Bryant Hayes, I would create someone who could. Marcus Webb was born from necessity and desperation. I chose the name carefully selecting something distinctly American, but unremarkable enough to avoid scrutiny. Marcus suggested strength and reliability, while Webb implied connection and artistry. This fictional person would become everything my parents refused to let me be. During my first semester at Johns Hopkins, I rented a tiny storage unit 15 miles from campus using cash I'd saved from high school jobs. This became my secret studio, equipped with easels, canvases, and oil paints purchased under my new identity. The challenge wasn't just creating art, but building an entire persona around Marcus Webb that could withstand investigation. I established a post office box in Baltimore using falsified documents, created email accounts with carefully crafted backstories, and developed a distinctive artistic style that blended medical precision with emotional rawness. My first painting, Anatomy of Sorrow, depicted a dissected heart rendered in blues and grays that seemed to pulse with life. I'd painted it during my gross anatomy course using knowledge gained from studying cadavers to create something beautiful from death. Finding a gallery to represent Marcus Webb required months of research and careful planning. Catherine Morgan owned a small but prestigious space in Washington, D.C., known for discovering emerging talent before anyone else recognized their potential. I approached her through carefully worded emails presenting myself as a reclusive artist seeking discreet representation. Catherine was intrigued by Marcus Webb's mysterious nature and the haunting quality of his work. She agreed to a meeting at a coffee shop near her gallery, where I appeared wearing glasses, a baseball cap, and clothes deliberately chosen to make me unremarkable. I spoke in a slightly different cadence than my natural speech, claiming that Marcus preferred anonymity due to personal circumstances. My first sale happened 3 weeks later. Anatomy of Sorrow sold to a private collector for $5,000 more money than I'd ever possessed. Standing in my dorm room that evening holding the check made out to Marcus Webb, I felt the intoxicating rush of artistic validation my parents had tried to destroy. The money posed immediate challenges. I couldn't deposit it into my regular accounts without raising questions about its source. Instead, I opened new banking relationships under the Marcus Webb identity, using the storage unit's address and maintaining the fiction through careful document management. Every transaction required planning, every interaction demanded perfect consistency with the persona I'd created. As my medical studies progressed through gross anatomy, physiology, and pathology, my artistic output intensified. The knowledge I gained during the day informed the paintings I created at night, resulting in works that possessed an unusual combination of technical accuracy and emotional depth. My piece, Silent Rebellion, emerged from this period depicting a figure in surgical scrubs standing before an easel, their face obscured, but their posture conveying defiance and longing. When Catherine sold Silent Rebellion for $800,000, I nearly dropped my phone during a lecture on cardiac catheterization. The collector, a prominent businessman from New York, had paid 20 times what I'd expected, calling the piece a masterwork of contemporary realism. That same afternoon, I received my first failing grade in medical school, having missed 3 consecutive study sessions due to late nights in my secret studio. The irony wasn't lost on me. As Marcus Webb gained recognition in galleries from Boston to Los Angeles, Bryant Hayes struggled to maintain passing grades in courses that felt increasingly meaningless. I was living proof that passion and talent couldn't be forced into predetermined molds. Yet I remained trapped in the deception I'd created to preserve family harmony. My parents noticed my declining academic performance, but attributed it to the adjustment difficulties common among medical students. They increased their encouragement, offering additional financial support, and reminding me constantly of the pride they felt in my chosen profession. Each word of praise felt like another weight added to the burden of my double life, making success as Marcus Webb simultaneously more rewarding and more painful. By my 3rd year of medical school, Marcus Webb had become a phenomenon that even I couldn't have imagined. Art critics across the country praised my work for its unique perspective on human suffering and healing, unaware that their mysterious artist was studying the very subjects that inspired his paintings. Jonathan Phillips, the most influential art critic in America, wrote a 7-page analysis of my series Hidden Truths for Art Forum magazine, calling Marcus Webb the voice of a generation struggling to find authenticity in a world that demands conformity. The success was overwhelming and terrifying in equal measure. Galleries from major cities competed to represent Marcus Webb, exclusively offering contracts worth millions of dollars. Meanwhile, Bryant Hayes borrowed $3,000 from his parents to cover what they believed were medical school expenses, adding another layer of guilt to my increasingly complex deception. My painting series, Hidden Truths, consisted of 12 large canvases that explored the disconnect between public personas and private realities. Each piece depicted figures in professional settings, medical environments, corporate offices, academic institutions, but rendered their inner emotional states through abstract elements that seemed to bleed through the realistic surfaces. The series sold collectively for $4.7 million at a private auction in Manhattan, establishing Marcus Webb as one of the most sought-after contemporary artists in America. Catherine Morgan handled the business aspects of my career with remarkable skill, though her curiosity about Marcus Webb's personal life grew more insistent with each successful exhibition. She'd begun asking questions about family background, education, and artistic training that required increasingly elaborate responses. I maintained that Marcus valued privacy above all else, citing emotional trauma from his past that made public appearances impossible. The financial success of my art career created opportunities I'd never anticipated. Through a series of carefully orchestrated legal maneuvers involving offshore accounts and anonymous trusts, I began making substantial charitable donations to causes that resonated with my dual existence. The largest of these donations, $12 million, went to Mercy General Hospital, where my parents worked funding a new wing dedicated to combining medical treatment with artistic therapy. Watching my parents on the local news that evening, expressing gratitude for the generous, anonymous benefactor who transformed their hospital, created a surreal, emotional experience. My mother spoke eloquently about the importance of treating patients as whole human beings, acknowledging their emotional and spiritual needs alongside their physical ailments. My father, typically reserved in public settings, became visibly emotional as he described how the new wing would allow doctors to address suffering in ways that traditional medicine couldn't reach. That same week, they lectured me about fiscal responsibility during a family dinner, pointing to the anonymous donor as an example of what successful people accomplish through dedication and hard work. My father cut his steak with surgical precision as he spoke about the importance of delayed gratification and building wealth through consistent effort rather than chasing unrealistic dreams. The person who donated this money understood that real success comes from choosing practical careers that benefit society. My mother added her voice, carrying the gentle but firm tone she used with difficult patients. Artists might bring joy to people's lives, but doctors save them. Money follows value, Bryant, and nothing is more valuable than human life. I nodded appropriately while calculating that my latest painting, Emergency Room Blues, Enough, would likely sell for more than my parents earned in an entire year. The piece had emerged from my clinical rotations, depicting the organized chaos of trauma treatment through a combination of hyper-realistic medical equipment and swirling abstract elements representing the emotional turbulence experienced by patients and staff. My medical school performance continued to suffer as my artistic career demanded increasing attention. Marcus Webb's growing reputation brought interview requests, exhibition opportunities, and collaborative proposals that required careful management to maintain my anonymity. I developed elaborate systems for communicating with galleries, collectors, and critics without revealing my true identity, using voice modulation software for phone calls and hiring actors to appear as Marcus Webb's representatives at public events. The stress of maintaining two complete lives began affecting my physical health. I lost 15 pounds during my surgery rotation, existing on coffee and adrenaline, while splitting time between hospital rounds and late-night painting sessions. My hands, trained for the precise movements required in medical procedures, developed a slight tremor that I blamed on excessive caffeine consumption. Thomas Rodriguez, my roommate since our first year, began noticing changes in my behavior that worried him. He'd find me missing for entire weekends, with vague explanations about visiting sick relatives or attending medical conferences. When he discovered art supplies hidden in my closet, I claimed they belonged to a girlfriend who sometimes stayed over, though he'd never met any woman I was dating. Dr. Harrison Clark, my surgery rotation supervisor, became increasingly frustrated with my distracted performance during procedures. He'd trained hundreds of medical students over his 30-year career and possessed an intuitive ability to identify those who lacked genuine commitment to medicine. During our midterm evaluation, he expressed concerns about my focus and dedication that felt uncomfortably accurate. Medicine demands total commitment. Hayes, he said, his piercing blue eyes, studying my face for signs of the passion he expected from surgical candidates. Patients trust us with their lives because they believe we've sacrificed everything else to master our craft. I'm not seeing that level of commitment from you. I assured him that medicine remained my primary focus, though the words felt hollow as I spoke them. That evening, I received notification that my painting, Doctor's Dilemma, had sold at auction for $2.8 million, setting a new record for Marcus Webb's work. The piece depicted a figure in surgical scrubs standing at a crossroads, with one path leading toward an operating room filled with golden light and another toward an artist's studio, bathed in rainbow colors. The irony of my situation intensified when Mercy General Hospital announced plans for a charity auction featuring works by prominent, contemporary artists, including several pieces by Marcus Webb. My parents volunteered to chair the organizing committee, expressing excitement about the opportunity to meet representatives of the mysterious artist whose work had so profoundly impacted the art world. The beginning of my residency marked a turning point where the carefully constructed walls between my two lives began crumbling. The demands of medical training intensified exponentially, requiring 100-hour weeks and complete mental focus that left no energy for maintaining the elaborate deceptions necessary for Marcus Webb's continued success. Dr. Harrison Clark's suspicions about my commitment proved prophetic as I began making errors that reflected my divided attention. During a routine appendectomy, I hesitated at a critical moment while my mind wandered to color compositions for a new painting series. The patient suffered no harm, but Dr. Clark's post-operative review was devastating in its clinical precision. Surgical procedures require absolute presence, Hayes. Your technique is adequate, but your mind is elsewhere. Medicine tolerates many weaknesses, but divided attention kills patients. The irony was that my distraction stemmed from artistic inspiration derived from medical experiences. Working in trauma surgery provided endless material for paintings that explored themes of life, death, and healing with authenticity that critics found revolutionary. My piece, Emergency Room Blues, had emerged from a particularly intense night in the ER where I'd witnessed both miraculous saves and heartbreaking losses within the span of 6 hours. As Marcus Webb's reputation reached unprecedented heights, the art world's appetite for his work became insatiable. Catherine Morgan fielded requests from museums, collectors, and media outlets daily, each requiring careful responses that maintained the fiction of his reclusive nature while building anticipation for future releases. The pressure to produce new work intensified just as my medical responsibilities reached their most demanding phase. I began using hospital supply closets and empty patient rooms as makeshift studios, stealing moments between rounds to sketch compositions and mix colors. The hospital's 24-hour operation provided cover for my nocturnal painting sessions, though the constant risk of discovery added stress that manifested in sleeplessness and anxiety. My relationship with Sarah Collins, a fellow resident in internal medicine, suffered as my secretiveness increased. Sarah possessed the analytical mind and compassionate nature that made her an exceptional doctor, qualities that also made her perceptive about interpersonal dynamics. She noticed paint residue under my fingernails that I claimed came from helping friends with home renovation projects. "You're different, Bryant," she said during one of our rare quiet moments in the hospital cafeteria. "You used to talk about medicine with passion even when you were struggling. Now you seem like you're going through motions waiting for something else to happen." Her observation struck deeper than any criticism from supervisors because it reflected a truth I'd been avoiding. My artistic success had revealed that medicine, while intellectually stimulating, didn't ignite the creative fire that painting provided. Yet abandoning medical training after 7 years would devastate my parents and validate every doubt they'd expressed about my character and commitment. The situation reached a crisis point when Dr. Clark discovered art supplies in my locker during a routine inspection. Oil paints, brushes, and sketch pads tumbled onto the floor of the resident's locker room, creating a scene that demanded immediate explanation. I claimed the materials belonged to my nephew, whom I was encouraging to pursue artistic hobbies, but Dr. Clark's expression indicated skepticism about my hurried explanation. "Residents' lockers are for medical equipment and personal necessities only," he said, his voice carrying the measured tone of someone accustomed to enforcing institutional rules. "Whatever extracurricular activities you're pursuing, need to remain completely separate from your professional responsibilities. That same week, Marcus Webb received an invitation to exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the most prestigious honor available to contemporary artists. The exhibition would feature a retrospective of his work spanning 5 years, accompanied by scholarly essays analyzing his contribution to American art. Accepting this opportunity required Marcus Webb to make public appearances, giving interviews, and attending opening events that would expose me to scrutiny I couldn't withstand. I created an elaborate story about a family emergency requiring extended absence from the hospital, using my accumulated vacation time and sick leave to attend my own art opening. Standing in the museum's galleries, surrounded by my paintings displayed with professional lighting and detailed explanatory texts, I experienced a profound sense of displacement. These works represented my authentic self, yet I couldn't claim ownership of them without destroying everything else in my life. The opening night attracted celebrities, critics, and collectors who praised Marcus Webb's revolutionary approach to contemporary realism. Catherine Morgan fielded questions about the artist's absence with practiced skill, explaining that his intense creative process required solitude and that public appearances caused him significant anxiety. Art critic Jonathan Phillips published a review the following day that elevated Marcus Webb to the pantheon of essential American artists. Webb's work transcends mere technical proficiency to achieve something approaching spiritual revelation, he wrote. These paintings speak to universal human experiences of suffering, healing, and transcendence, with a voice that seems to emerge from lived experience rather than academic study. While critics celebrated Marcus Webb's artistic achievements, Bryant Hayes's medical career teetered on the edge of collapse. Dr. Clark submitted formal complaints about my performance to the Residency Review Board, citing pattern of absences, declining technical skills, and apparent lack of commitment to patient care. The review board scheduled a hearing that would determine whether I could continue in the program. My parents, unaware of the professional crisis threatening my medical career, expressed increasing pride in their son's choice to pursue medicine. They attended hospital fundraisers and medical conferences with renewed enthusiasm, often mentioning their resident son to colleagues who inquired about family. Their obvious satisfaction with my career path made the thought of disappointing them even more unbearable. The final straw came when I collapsed during a 12-hour surgery, overcome by exhaustion and stress from maintaining my double life. The patient experienced no complications, but my inability to complete the procedure raised serious questions about my fitness for surgical training. Dr. Clark's incident report documented concerns about my physical and mental state that would follow me throughout my medical career. As I lay in the hospital bed where staff monitored my vital signs, I received a text message from Catherine Morgan informing me that Doctor's Dilemma had just sold for $2.8 million, setting a new auction record for Marcus Webb's work. The painting depicted a figure torn between two worlds, never realizing how literally it reflected my own impossible situation. The collision course between my two lives accelerated when my parents volunteered to organize Mercy General Hospital's annual charity auction, an event that had grown into one of the city's most prestigious fundraising galas. Their enthusiasm for the project stemmed partly from gratitude for the anonymous donation that had funded the hospital's new arts therapy wing, and partly from their desire to contribute something meaningful to the institution where they'd built their careers. Dr. Patricia Hayes brought her characteristic organizational precision to the planning committee, while Dr. Robert Hayes used his extensive professional network to secure donations from prominent artists and collectors. Their combined efforts attracted attention from major galleries and auction houses, transforming what had traditionally been a modest hospital fundraiser into a significant cultural event. When Catherine Morgan contacted the hospital about donating a Marcus Webb piece to the auction, my parents' excitement was palpable. They'd been following Webb's career with the same intensity they applied to medical research, collecting articles and reviews about his work while speculating about his mysterious identity. This could be our opportunity to finally meet the artist, my mother said during a family dinner where they discussed auction preparations. Catherine Morgan mentioned that Webb might make a rare public appearance if the cause is sufficiently meaningful to him. My father nodded thoughtfully, cutting his vegetables with the precision he brought to surgical procedures. Someone with his talent and success choosing to support our hospital suggests a personal connection to healthcare. Perhaps he or a family member has been treated here. Their speculation sent chills through me as I realized how dangerously close they were coming to the truth. I encouraged their efforts, while secretly hoping that Marcus Webb's continued reclusiveness would prevent any direct contact that might expose my deception. The situation became more precarious when my parents hired private investigator Linda Rodriguez to research Marcus Webb's background, ostensibly to prepare appropriate biographical materials for the auction catalog. Linda specialized in finding information about reclusive celebrities and public figures who valued their privacy, making her exceptionally skilled at the type of investigation I most feared. Linda's preliminary research revealed several concerning details about Marcus Webb's carefully constructed identity. She traced his earliest gallery representation to Baltimore, noting the geographical proximity to Johns Hopkins Medical School. She identified inconsistencies in the biographical information provided by his representatives, particularly regarding his claimed educational background and family history. The timeline doesn't quite add up, Linda reported to my parents during a meeting I observed from across the hospital cafeteria. Webb's representatives claim he studied art in Europe during the same period when gallery records show him selling work in Baltimore. Either someone is providing false information, or Webb has been more accessible than his public image suggests. My parents' medical training made them naturally analytical, and they approached Linda's findings with the same systematic thinking they applied to complex diagnoses. They began cross-referencing exhibition dates with local events, looking for patterns that might reveal Webb's true identity, or at least narrow down his possible locations. Meanwhile, Catherine Morgan was facing pressure from multiple directions regarding Marcus Webb's mysterious nature. Art collectors who'd invested millions in his work demanded more transparency about the artist they were supporting. Media outlets offered substantial payments for exclusive interviews or photographs. The Museum of Modern Art threatened to cancel future exhibitions unless Webb became more accessible to scholars and critics. Catherine finally issued an ultimatum during a tense phone conversation where she'd grown tired of managing an artist who seemed to exist only as a voice on carefully modulated phone calls. Marcus, your anonymity was charming when you were an emerging artist, but it's becoming a liability now that you're established. The art world expects a certain level of professional engagement from artists at your level. I tried to negotiate more time explaining that Marcus was working through personal issues that made public appearances impossible. Catherine's response was cutting in its directness. Either you start making normal professional commitments, or I'll be forced to reveal what I know about your true circumstances. The mystery has served its purpose, but business requires transparency. Her threat came at the worst possible time, as my medical career hung by an increasingly thin thread. The Residency Review Board had scheduled a formal hearing to determine my future in the program, citing concerns about my performance reliability and commitment to patient care. Dr. Clark's documentation of my errors and absences painted a picture of someone unsuited for the demands of medical practice. The stress of managing these multiple crises began affecting my health in ways that couldn't be ignored. I lost an additional 10 pounds, bringing my total weight loss to 25 pounds since beginning my residency. My hands developed a noticeable tremor that interfered with both surgical procedures and painting technique. Sleep became elusive as my mind raced through scenarios where my deception would be exposed. Thomas, my roommate, confronted me about changes in my behavior that had become impossible to ignore. He'd found gallery catalogs featuring Marcus Webb's work hidden in my belongings, along with exhibition reviews and collector information that seemed inconsistent with my claimed disinterest in art. "I've known you for 6 years, Bryant," he said, his voice carrying concern rather than accusation. "You're hiding something significant, and it's destroying your health and your career. Whatever it is, it can't be worth the price you're paying." His words resonated with a truth I'd been avoiding, but admitting the deception felt impossible after so many years of careful construction. Too many people had invested too much in both Bryant Hayes, the medical resident, and Marcus Webb, the celebrated artist, for me to simply abandon either identity without devastating consequences. Sarah Collins also noticed my deteriorating condition and made several attempts to discuss what she perceived as symptoms of severe stress and possible depression. As a physician, she recognized signs of someone struggling with more than normal residency pressures. "You're exhibiting classic symptoms of someone living under extreme stress," she observed during one of our increasingly rare private conversations. "Your weight loss, tremor, and sleep disturbance suggest something beyond normal academic pressure. Have you considered that you might be dealing with depression or anxiety that requires professional treatment?" Her clinical assessment was accurate, but addressed only the symptoms, not the underlying cause of my condition. I couldn't explain that my stress stemmed from living two completely separate lives, each demanding total commitment while remaining mutually exclusive. The investigation into Marcus Webb's identity intensified as my parents applied their considerable resources and connections to solving what they viewed as an intriguing mystery. They contacted colleagues at medical schools across the country, looking for anyone who might have knowledge of artists working within healthcare settings. Dr. Robert Hayes made a breakthrough when he realized that several of Webb's paintings contained anatomical details that could only come from medical training. "Look at the way he renders cardiac tissue in this piece," he told my mother, pointing to a reproduction of Emergency Room Blues. "The valve structure and blood vessel configuration are too accurate for someone without surgical experience." My mother studied the image with her cardiologist's expertise, immediately recognizing the accuracy my father had identified. "You're absolutely right. This level of detail suggests either medical training or extensive collaboration with healthcare professionals. Webb isn't just painting medical scenes. He's depicting them with the precision of someone who's performed these procedures." Their discovery represented a significant breakthrough in the investigation, narrowing the pool of possible candidates for Marcus Webb's true identity to individuals with both artistic talent and medical knowledge. Given the geographical connection to Baltimore and the timing of Webb's earliest work, they began focusing their attention on current or former medical students in the area. As the charity auction approached, scheduled for the same week as my residency review hearing, I found myself trapped between converging forces that threatened to expose everything I'd worked to conceal. The careful balance I'd maintained for 7 years was collapsing, and I could see no way to preserve both my medical career and my artistic success without devastating consequences for everyone involved. My attempt to deflect my parents' investigation backfired spectacularly when I convinced Catherine Morgan to release a fabricated biography claiming Marcus Webb suffered from severe social anxiety and agoraphobia. The story was designed to explain his reclusiveness while generating sympathy that might discourage further probing into his personal life. The biography described Webb as a brilliant but troubled artist whose early traumatic experiences had left him incapable of normal social interaction. According to the carefully crafted narrative, he developed his artistic vision through years of isolation, channeling his psychological pain into paintings that resonated with universal human suffering. Catherine presented the story to major art publications, hoping it would satisfy their curiosity while protecting the mystery that had become central to Webb's marketability. The response was immediate and intense, with critics and collectors expressing fascination with the romantic notion of the tortured artist creating masterpieces from his emotional turmoil. However, my parents' medical backgrounds allowed them to identify inconsistencies in the psychological profile that escaped notice from art world observers. Dr. Patricia Hayes, with her cardiology training and extensive experience treating patients with anxiety disorders, found several problematic elements in Webb's supposed condition. The symptoms don't align with genuine agoraphobia, she explained to Dr. Robert Hayes as they reviewed the published biography. Someone with the severity of social anxiety described here couldn't maintain the level of professional relationships necessary for a successful art career. Gallery representation, collector communications, and exhibition planning all require interpersonal skills that would be impossible for someone with this condition. Dr. Robert Hayes brought his neurosurgeon's analytical precision to examining the medical aspects of Webb's claimed mental health issues. The timeline of his artistic development doesn't match typical patterns for anxiety disorders of this severity. His work shows increasing confidence and technical mastery, while someone struggling with genuine agoraphobia would likely demonstrate more erratic progress. Their medical expertise revealed flaws in my fabricated story that I hadn't anticipated, making the biography counterproductive to my goal of discouraging investigation. Instead of satisfying their curiosity, the inconsistencies intensified their determination to uncover the truth about Marcus Webb's identity. Linda Rodriguez, the private investigator, made a significant breakthrough when she traced Webb's banking relationships to a Baltimore law firm that specialized in creating anonymous financial structures for high-net-worth individuals. The same firm had handled the anonymous donation to Mercy General Hospital, establishing a direct connection between the mysterious artist and the benefactor my parents sought to identify. The financial trail leads back to the same legal entity, Linda reported during an update meeting with my parents. Either these are remarkable coincidences, or Marcus Webb and your anonymous donor are the same person. This revelation transformed my parents' investigation from casual curiosity into focused determination. They began working backward from the donation using their hospital connections to identify anyone who would have possessed the detailed knowledge of institutional needs that the donor had demonstrated. My painting, Surgical Precision, created additional problems when art critics noted its uncanny accuracy in depicting neurosurgical procedures. The piece showed a surgeon's hands performing a delicate brain operation, with every instrument and anatomical detail rendered with photographic precision. Dr. Robert Hayes immediately recognized the technical accuracy when he saw the painting in a gallery catalog. This artist has observed actual neurosurgical procedures, he told my mother with certainty. The hand positioning, instrument selection, and surgical field preparation are exactly correct. You can't achieve this level of accuracy from textbooks or general observation. Their growing certainty that Marcus Webb possessed medical training combined with the geographical and financial connections they discovered led them to request personnel records from Johns Hopkins Medical School. They were looking for current or recent students who might have the artistic skills and medical knowledge necessary to create Webb's distinctive work. Catherine Morgan's patience with my continued evasions finally reached its breaking point. During what would be our final phone conversation as artist and representative, she delivered an ultimatum that shattered any remaining illusions about maintaining my double life indefinitely. I've been documenting our communications for months, Marcus, she said, her voice carrying the hard edge of someone who'd grown tired of elaborate deceptions. Voice analysis, phone records, and financial transactions all point to someone local, probably connected to the Baltimore medical community. I can make this information public, or you can start meeting your professional obligations like every other successful artist. Her threat to expose what she'd discovered came just days before my residency review hearing, when my medical career was already hanging by a thread. The convergence of these pressures made it impossible to maintain the careful compartmentalization that had allowed my double life to function. Thomas finally confronted me about the Marcus Webb exhibition catalogs he'd found in my belongings, along with detailed notes about upcoming auctions and gallery showings that seemed inconsistent with casual interest in contemporary art. "These aren't the materials of someone with passing interest in art," he said, spreading the evidence across our shared kitchen table. "You've got inside information about exhibitions, price estimates, and collector interest that suggests direct involvement with this artist's career." Sarah Collins made her own troubling discovery when she found paint residue on clothing I'd forgotten to clean after a late-night painting session. As a physician trained in observational skills, she recognized oil paint when she saw it, despite my claims about helping friends with home renovation projects. "Oil paint isn't used in house painting, Bryant," she said, with the directness of someone who valued honesty above politeness. "These stains are from artistic work and they're fresh. You're either painting yourself or spending time with someone who is." My parents' investigation reached a critical juncture when they realized that Marcus Webb's first gallery sale had occurred just weeks after the anonymous donation to their hospital. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental, suggesting coordination between the artist and the benefactor that supported their theory about a shared identity. Dr. Patricia Hayes made the connection that finally exposed the truth when she realized that several of Webb's paintings contained visual perspectives that could only be achieved from specific locations within Mercy General Hospital. Emergency Room Blues showed the trauma bay from an angle accessible only to medical staff, while Night Shift Solitude depicted the residents' lounge during hours when only hospital personnel would be present. "These aren't the observations of an outside artist," she concluded with the diagnostic precision that made her an exceptional cardiologist. "Webb has spent extensive time in our hospital, probably as staff, rather than a visitor." The charity auction was scheduled for the following Saturday, the same weekend as my residency review hearing. Linda Rodriguez planned to present her complete findings about Marcus Webb's identity to my parents during the auction preparations, while Catherine Morgan had threatened to expose my deception if I didn't make a public appearance as Webb. Standing in my apartment surrounded by evidence of the two lives I'd tried to maintain, I realized that 7 years of careful deception were about to collapse simultaneously. The success I'd achieved as Marcus Webb had become inseparable from the failure I was experiencing as Bryant Hayes, and there was no way to save one without destroying the other. The painting I'd been working on, Truth and Consequences, depicted a figure standing at the intersection of two diverging paths, each leading toward different definitions of success and authenticity. As I put the finishing touches on this piece that might be Marcus Webb's final work, I understood that the choice between my two identities could no longer be delayed. The night of the charity auction arrived with the weight of 7 years pressing down on my shoulders. Mercy General Hospital's main lobby had been transformed into an elegant gallery space, with my paintings displayed alongside works by other prominent contemporary artists. The centerpiece of the exhibition was Silent Rebellion, the piece that had sold for $800,000 during my medical school years and now commanded over $3 million in estimated value. I attended the event wearing a carefully constructed disguise, presenting myself as David Morrison, a wealthy art collector from Philadelphia with interests in contemporary American artists. The false identity required minimal props, wire-rimmed glasses, a tailored suit that changed my apparent body type, and subtle prosthetics that altered my facial structure enough to avoid recognition. My parents stood near the entrance greeting guests with the practiced charm of seasoned physicians comfortable in social settings. Dr. Patricia Hayes wore an elegant black dress that complemented her professional demeanor, while Dr. Robert Hayes had traded his surgical scrubs for a tuxedo that emphasized his distinguished appearance. The evening's program included a presentation of their investigation findings, marketed to attendees as an exciting revelation about Marcus Webb's mysterious identity. Linda Rodriguez stood nearby with a thick folder containing evidence that would expose everything I'd worked to conceal. As guests mingled around the displayed artworks, I overheard conversations that revealed how thoroughly my parents had prepared for this confrontation. They'd cross-referenced hospital employee records with art school applications, identified financial transactions linking Webb to the anonymous donation, and compiled medical evidence proving the artist's healthcare background. Tonight we'll finally solve the mystery that has captivated the art world. My father announced to a gathering of distinguished guests. The evidence points conclusively to someone with intimate knowledge of our hospital and extensive medical training. My mother added her findings with scientific precision. The anatomical accuracy in these paintings requires surgical experience that narrows potential candidates significantly. We believe Marcus Webb is someone much closer to our community than anyone has suspected. Standing 20 feet away in my disguise, I watched them prepare to destroy both my identities simultaneously. The careful balance I'd maintained for 7 years was about to collapse in the most public way possible, devastating not only my own life, but also the careers and reputations of everyone I'd deceived. The evening's trajectory changed dramatically when Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield, a prominent art collector who'd been one of Marcus Webb's earliest supporters, suddenly collapsed near the display of Emergency Room Blues. She'd been examining the painting when she suffered what appeared to be a massive cardiac arrest, falling to the marble floor as guests around her screamed in shock and confusion. My father immediately took charge of the medical emergency, his surgical training, overriding all other considerations as he knelt beside Mrs. Whitfield and began assessing her condition. My mother joined him seconds later, both of them working to stabilize a patient whose life hung in the balance. "Someone call 911 immediately," Dr. Robert Hayes shouted while checking for vital signs. "We need advanced cardiac support here now." The crowd pressed closer, creating a chaotic scene that interfered with my parents' attempts to provide emergency care. Mrs. Whitfield's condition deteriorated rapidly as they struggled without proper equipment or medications, relying on basic CPR techniques that weren't sufficient for her severe cardiac event. I watched from my position near the back wall, recognizing immediately that Mrs. Whitfield needed interventions beyond what basic life support could provide. She required immediate defibrillation, advanced airway management, and cardiac medications that weren't available in the hospital's public areas during evening events. My medical training told me exactly what needed to be done, while my artistic conscience reminded me that Mrs. Whitfield had been instrumental in Marcus Webb's early career success. She'd purchased 3 of his paintings when he was unknown, believing in his talent before critics and collectors recognized his potential. The paramedics were delayed by traffic complications, leaving Mrs. Whitfield's life dependent on whatever care could be provided immediately. My parents' expertise wasn't sufficient without proper equipment, and precious minutes were passing as her condition continued to deteriorate. Standing in that crowd wearing a disguise that symbolized 7 years of deception, I faced the most important decision of my life. I could maintain my cover and watch Mrs. Whitfield die, preserving the elaborate fiction that had consumed my existence. Or I could abandon everything I'd built to save the life of someone who'd believed in my art when nobody else would. The choice became clear when I realized that all the success money and recognition meant nothing if I couldn't live with the person I'd become. I pushed through the crowd, removing my glasses and prosthetics as I approached the medical emergency. "I'm a resident physician," I announced, kneeling beside my parents as they looked up in shock and recognition. "She needs immediate cardioversion and epinephrine. The hospital's crash cart is locked in the administrative wing, but I know how to access it." My father's eyes widened as he recognized his son beneath the disguise, while my mother's face showed a mixture of confusion and relief at the appearance of additional medical expertise. There was no time for explanations or questions, as Mrs. Whitfield's life depended on immediate action. Working together with the efficiency that only medical training could provide, we stabilized Mrs. Whitfield's condition enough to sustain her until advanced life support arrived. My knowledge of the hospital's emergency protocols and equipment locations proved essential in accessing the resources necessary for her survival. As Mrs. Whitfield's vital signs improved and color returned to her face, the crowd that had gathered to witness a charity auction instead observed a dramatic revelation that would transform multiple lives. My presence at the event, wearing a disguise while possessing detailed knowledge of both the hospital's operations and Mrs. Whitfield's medical history, made certain conclusions inevitable. Catherine Morgan, who'd attended the auction to represent Marcus Webb's interests, stood in stunned silence as she realized the truth about the mysterious artist she'd represented for 7 years. The revelation that her reclusive painter was actually the son of the doctors organizing the event created a dramatic irony that nobody could have anticipated. Linda Rodriguez lowered her folder of investigation materials, understanding that the evidence she'd gathered had become unnecessary. The truth had revealed itself more dramatically than any amount of detective work could have achieved. As the paramedics took over Mrs. Whitfield's care and transported her to the hospital's emergency department, I remained kneeling on the marble floor, surrounded by my paintings and facing the shocked expressions of everyone I'd deceived. The carefully constructed walls between Bryant Hayes and Marcus Webb had finally collapsed, leaving me to confront the consequences of 7 years spent living as two different people. The immediate aftermath of my revelation created a silence that seemed to suspend time itself. Mrs. Whitfield's successful stabilization and transport to intensive care provided a positive focus that tempered the shock of my exposed identity, but the questions and consequences couldn't be avoided indefinitely. My parents stood speechless as they processed the implications of what they'd witnessed. Their son, whom they'd forced into medical school while forbidding artistic pursuits, had become one of America's most celebrated contemporary artists, while simultaneously completing the medical training they demanded. Dr. Patricia Hayes was the first to speak her cardiologist's training, helping her maintain composure even as her worldview restructured itself around this new reality. "You saved Mrs. Whitfield's life tonight, Bryant. Your medical knowledge and quick thinking were essential, but I don't understand how you became Marcus Webb without us knowing." My father's response carried the analytical precision he brought to complex surgical cases. "The financial resources, the artistic skill, the medical accuracy in your paintings, everything we've been investigating points to a level of achievement we never imagined possible." Standing before them with paint still under my fingernails and the remnants of my disguise in my hands, I felt the enormous weight of 7 years' worth of deception lifting from my shoulders. The relief of honesty, even in these circumstances, was overwhelming. I never stopped wanting to be an artist. I began my voice carrying the authenticity that had been missing from our relationship for nearly a decade. "When you destroyed my art school acceptance and forced me into medicine, I couldn't abandon the part of myself that needed to create. So I became Marcus Webb, to pursue the dreams you wouldn't let Bryant Hayes follow." The explanation that followed revealed the full scope of my double life: the secret studio, the false identity, the elaborate systems for maintaining separation between my two careers. I described the financial success that had allowed me to anonymously donate millions to their hospital while pretending to struggle with student debt. "The $12 million that funded the New Arts Therapy Wing came from my paintings," I continued. "I wanted to give something back to the place where you'd built your careers, even if I couldn't tell you I was the donor." Dr. Robert Hayes processed this information with the methodical approach he applied to complex diagnoses. "You donated millions to our hospital while we lectured you about financial responsibility and poor life choices. The irony is almost unbearable." Catherine Morgan approached our family group, her expression mixing embarrassment with admiration. "I owe you an apology, Bryant. 7 years of representing Marcus Webb, and I never suspected the truth. Your artistic vision and business acumen were remarkable, but your dedication to maintaining both careers simultaneously is extraordinary." Her acknowledgement meant more than any art critic's review, because it recognized the enormous personal cost of my achievements. Living two complete lives had required sacrifices and stresses that nobody could fully understand without experiencing them directly. Sarah Collins, who'd been attending the auction as my guest, joined the conversation with the directness that made her an exceptional physician. This explains everything about your behavior over the past few years. The weight loss, the exhaustion, the secretiveness, you were literally living double lives. Thomas, my roommate shook his head in amazement as he realized the implications of what I'd accomplished. 6 years of wondering why you were so mysterious about everything. You were running a multi-million-dollar art career while completing medical residency. How did you manage both without losing your mind? The honest answer was that I'd nearly lost my mind multiple times. But the passion for both pursuits had provided energy that sustained me through the most difficult periods. Medicine and art weren't competing interests, but complementary aspects of my identity that had been artificially separated by family expectations. Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield's recovery provided a redemptive element that transformed the evening from potential disaster into celebration of human resilience. When she regained consciousness in the intensive care unit, her first words were about the painting she'd been examining when she collapsed. "Emergency room blues saved my life in more ways than one," she said, when I visited her hospital room the following day. Not only did it inspire me to attend an event where medical help was immediately available, but the artist himself was there to provide the care I needed. Her words carried weight beyond their immediate meaning because they represented forgiveness and acceptance from someone who'd been instrumental in Marcus Webb's early success. Mrs. Whitfield's support had enabled my artistic career when I was unknown, and her survival validated the medical training I'd pursued despite my artistic ambitions. Dr. Harrison Clark, my residency supervisor, who'd been preparing to recommend my dismissal from the program, requested a meeting where he offered a perspective I hadn't anticipated. "Your situation is unprecedented in my 30 years of medical education. Maintaining successful dual careers at this level demonstrates time management dedication and intellectual capacity that actually strengthen your qualifications as a physician." The Residency Review Board reached a similar conclusion, noting that my unique background positioned me to contribute to the growing field of arts-based therapy in medical settings. Rather than dismissing me from the program, they offered an opportunity to develop innovative treatment approaches that combined medical expertise with artistic insight. My parents' transformation from disappointment to pride required time and honest conversations that rebuilt our relationship on foundations of mutual respect rather than imposed expectations. Dr. Patricia Hayes acknowledged the narrow perspective that had nearly cost our family the joy of my artistic achievements. We were so focused on what we thought success should look like that we couldn't see the extraordinary success you were actually achieving, she admitted during one of our lengthy discussions about the future. "Your art brings healing to people in ways that complement medical treatment rather than competing with it." Dr. Robert Hayes expressed similar insights about the false choice he'd forced me to make between passion and practicality. Medicine and art both require dedication, creativity, and commitment to improving human life. I was wrong to think they were mutually exclusive rather than mutually supportive. The charity auction ultimately raised more money than any previous hospital fundraiser, partly due to the dramatic circumstances surrounding the evening's events. My decision to retire the Marcus Webb identity and continue creating art under my own name generated significant media attention that increased the value of existing works while establishing Bryant Hayes as an artist worthy of critical attention. Catherine Morgan continued as my representative handling the transition from mysterious Marcus Webb to openly practicing Bryant Hayes with professional skill that maintained market interest while respecting my desire for greater authenticity. The art world's fascination with my dual identity created opportunities for exhibitions and collaborations that had been impossible under my previous secrecy. The hospital established a new position, combining medical practice with arts therapy programming, allowing me to complete my residency while developing innovative treatment approaches that integrated creative expression with traditional healthcare. My paintings began incorporating medical themes more openly, creating works that spoke to universal experiences of illness, healing, and hope. Linda Rodriguez, the private investigator who'd unraveled my identity, became an unexpected friend after expressing admiration for the complexity of the deception she'd worked to expose. In 30 years of investigation work, I've never encountered anyone who managed dual careers at your level of success. Your organizational skills and attention to detail were remarkable. The relationship between my artistic and medical careers evolved from conflicting demands into synergistic pursuits that enhanced each other. Medical knowledge informed my artistic vision, while creative problem-solving skills improved my clinical thinking. Patients responded positively to treatment approaches that acknowledged their emotional and spiritual needs alongside their physical symptoms. My parents became enthusiastic supporters of my artistic career, attending exhibitions and connecting me with colleagues who might benefit from arts-based therapy approaches. Their network of medical professionals provided opportunities to develop programs that brought creative expression into healthcare settings across the country. The foundation I established used proceeds from my artwork to fund scholarships for students pursuing dual careers in medicine and arts. Recognizing that artificial barriers between disciplines often prevent innovative approaches to complex problems. Young people facing similar family pressures could pursue both passions without the deception that had nearly destroyed my health and relationships. As I reflect on the journey from secret artist to openly integrated physician-painter, the lessons learned extend far beyond my personal experience. The pressure to choose single paths often prevents us from discovering how different interests can complement rather than compete with each other. My parents learned that supporting children's authentic interests, even when they don't match parental expectations, creates stronger foundations for success than forcing predetermined choices. Love expressed through control often damages the relationships it's meant to protect. For me, the greatest lesson was that authenticity requires courage, but provides energy that sustains us through challenges that defeat people living false lives. The stress of maintaining my double identity nearly destroyed everything I valued, while embracing the full truth created possibilities I'd never imagined. The art world gained an artist whose work speaks to universal human experiences with the authenticity that only comes from lived experience rather than academic study. The medical community gained a physician whose creative background brings innovative approaches to patient care and healing. Standing in my studio now surrounded by paintings that openly explore themes of medicine, healing, and hope, I understand that the greatest success comes not from choosing between our passions, but from finding creative ways to honor all aspects of who we are. The journey was more difficult than necessary because of the artificial barriers I'd accepted, but the destination justified every challenge along the way. Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield, whose near-death experience catalyzed my transformation, continues to collect my work while serving on the board of my foundation. Her recovery represents more than medical success. It symbolizes the healing that becomes possible when we integrate all aspects of our authentic selves. The charity auction that night raised $3.7 million for the hospital, but its greater value lay in demonstrating that honesty, even when it exposes our imperfections and deceptions, creates possibilities for connection and growth that secrecy can never achieve. My story asks a question that resonates with anyone who's felt pressured to abandon dreams for practical considerations. What extraordinary achievements might become possible if we had the courage to pursue our authentic interests rather than conforming to others' expectations? How many Marcus Webbs remain hidden because people lack support for integrating their various talents and passions? I hope my experience encourages others to resist false choices between security and fulfillment, instead, finding creative ways to honor both their responsibilities and their dreams. The world needs physicians who understand artists, who comprehend science, and people brave enough to become fully themselves rather than diminished versions of what others expect them to be. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery, deception, and ultimately redemption. If my story resonates with your own struggles between expectations and authenticity, please share it with others who might benefit from knowing that success doesn't require abandoning who we truly are. Like and subscribe for more stories about finding the courage to live authentically, and leave a comment sharing how you've navigated the tension between following your dreams and meeting others' expectations. Your story might inspire someone else to embrace the fullness of their potential rather than settling for partial lives that leave their greatest gifts unexpressed.